Greetings, everybody. My name is Emily Enger. I am the minimalist book marketer. I am the founder of the company Good Enough Book Marketing, where I teach simple strategies for both book marketing and publicity to help minimize the noise and give writers their solitude back so they can keep writing. I am creating a video of Q&As this morning because I was recently invited to participate in an event, and I got a lot of follow-up questions from that event, and I promised that I would answer those questions. And they were such good questions, I thought, you know what? I'm also going to put them up on YouTube for everybody else who might be curious about some of these things. So I've got some questions here on my phone from some just amazing authors who have questions about how to succeed when it comes to marketing their books. Okay, so first question: how to sift through the tons of marketing and collab details, information, suggestions, programs, tips, and techniques to find what works for me and doesn't blow up my brain with confusion and frustration. Right? That's why I do what I do, because there's just too much noise out there, right? So how do you sift through all the noise? So I'm a big believer in intuition. I think that writers are insightful people. That's why you are a writer. And when you are hearing all of the options that keep getting flung at you, most writers aren't even seeking them out, right? There's just this barrage of information coming towards you saying all the things you should do. If your gut says that that's kind of a hokey idea, or that seems like a fad, it probably is. That is my number one tool for sorting through all the BS and the noise in the world, is my own gut. Now, I have a background in marketing, so I've honed my gut pretty well, but I think you have a good one too. In particular, because the best marketing strategy for you is going to be one that you are comfortable with. So it's not even about, is this idea, is it successful? Is it a fad? Is it effective? It's more, would I be comfortable doing X strategy, right? And only you know the answer to that. So that's what I would do. Also, unsubscribe. Please don't unsubscribe from my newsletter, but do unsubscribe from every newsletter or advice or social media account you follow that is just overwhelming you with info dump that's too much and is distracting you. Just keep your focus. How to make my books sell consistently? Well, that is the $1 million question. That's like the summary of what I think everybody is looking for. So here's the unfortunate answer. The only time that I have been able to help authors in a way that I saw a continual drip of there was a sale almost every day, multiple sales every day, of course, was through advertising. I don't actually recommend advertising usually, and I don't really in this case either. My point is just to let you understand the landscape, because if you rely solely on advertising in order for consistent sales, as you can imagine, your profit margin is going to be a lot thinner. Also, you have to learn how to do advertising well, and there's a bit of a science to it, and it doesn't give you a very loyal audience, so it's going to get you quick clicks that'll keep some steady drips of sales coming in, but it's not even going to be good, a good audience growth tool. And because of that, it just opens you up for more negative reviews and all these things. But that is, if you want to do that, like that would be my advice, and that's certainly been my experience, that if you do advertising, you'll get some steady drips. But if you are willing to not necessarily see a sales every single day, I would recommend more of a slow growth model, which is what I teach. And that's going to be a mix of publicity and then fostering and nurturing an audience in some channel, newsletter, social media, book tours, just meeting your people and nurturing them. But then always, getting interviewed, doing events, something so new people see you. But those don't always lead directly to sales either. So you have to be patient and climb up a ladder and kind of watch those sales build over time. The good news is with the slow growth method, you are getting in front of bigger and bigger audiences as you land better and better publicity. So hopefully eventually someday when you reach, you get featured on a podcast with a really large audience, the sales are going to reflect, we're going to reflect that. They're going to be bigger. Okay, how can I be ready come launch day? So I have a course that just launched. It's the Prepare course, and it's all about getting ready. It's not just getting you ready for launch day specifically. It's getting you ready for publicity as well, getting you ready for all the marketing you're going to do, which happens before launch day, by the way. But it also will help you just feel confident that when the day has come, that your book is out into the world, you have all of the proper materials. You can find that course at goodenoughbookmarketing.com. The people who actually wrote in for Q&A here actually already have access to that course. So you guys, you're already taken care of in that way. However, if your question is not just about launch day, but you're asking about your launch event, that's not really covered in my course. But if you are talking about, okay, I'm doing a book launch party, then what we're talking about is, have you communicated to your audience that your launch party is coming up? If you're doing a live in-person one, you're looking at a local audience. Your readership might not be local, so do have some adjustments of expectation that the people who go to your local launch are like a few of your friends and your mom and, a handful of local fans that you have, because they're the only ones who can make it to that. But you need to be communicating and reminding people that your launch is coming up for a couple weeks, consistently every couple days leading up to that launch event, to make sure you actually get, butts in the seats so you have somebody to read to. The other big important thing about launch events is don't spend too much time reading. Yes, I just said that. A big mistake I see is that authors on their launch event, they read like an entire chapter of their book. You want to just read a couple teasers. You want to keep the actual program relatively short. I mean, not 5 minutes, of course. People came out, they want some meat, they want some content, but they also get bored pretty fast when an author drones on and on and on. And it's hard to listen to things out loud sometimes, especially at a venue, if it's hard to hear and all the little things that are different live than if you're listening to like an audiobook and you can control the technology settings. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, some book marketing tips for backlist books. Oh, so this author is saying he has some old books that they want to bring visibility to. They're not necessarily new. So in the media, most reporters are not interested in interviewing you if you are trying to talk about a book that is more than about a year old. Some media will maybe go a little bit longer, but not super old. So that avenue is unfortunately not going to be there for you. Social media, on the other hand, and other forms of what we call content marketing, which is you writing kind of new content in either a blog or a newsletter or a blog tour that, blog somebody else owns, where you go and submit your writing other places. Those are all available to you, and you can just create content that is about the topics of those old books and then point people to those books. And then certainly on any new books, make sure you're mentioning you've listed your old books so that people can follow the trail of links back to some of your earlier work. And events. If your book is about a specific topic and there's any kind of trade show or fair or whatever that happens to be about that topic, where the audience would be perfect for the reader of an old book, take out a booth, become a vendor there. That's actually a good one for older books, simply because, again, everybody kind of online and in certainly traditional media is looking for things that are new, but At an event, people are there because of the topic, whatever brought them to the event. They don't really care whether your book is 12 years old or 2 months old. Okay, develop a best for my genre marketing strategy. Well, that depends on what your genre is, which I don't actually know. She did not give me the details here for which genre she writes in. But just in general, you're going to have to do what's called market research. You're going to have to go find authors who write in your genre that are similar to you and see where they're having success, and then try to mimic those strategies. But as before, make sure it's a strategy you enjoy and would want to do, because otherwise you're just not going to do it. So it's important, both that you identify a strategy that looks like it has promise, but also feels good to you. Finding the best marketing tool for my novel and the best audience. Oh man, this varies so much, you guys. It depends on your genre. Social media is the big thing right now. I know I talk to a lot of authors who don't want to use social media. I don't think you have to be on social media. But right now, the way to find people and for people to find you over kind of like-minded common interests really is social media. The good news is you can use pretty much any of the most popular platforms. I know there's a lot of pressure right now on authors to use TikTok because Book Talk kind of blew up and kind of became this great thing. And that's great if you want to be on TikTok. But the truth is there's plenty of audience and book influencers and segmented niche audiences of different genres on all of your basic social media platforms, all the well-known ones anyway, and you can create community on all of them. How to reach a wider audience. So this is kind of what I was saying before, publicity or writing articles and sending them to journals or other blogs that are on the same topic as to your books. But then make sure you have basically a call to action at the end of whatever kind of forward-facing marketing you do that tells that new audience where they can follow you. You need to be able to nurture your audience. They're not just going to buy your book right away. So you need to be able to say, follow me on Facebook, or go to my website here, or sign up for my newsletter here in order for that strategy to work. And if you don't do that piece, that strategy just doesn't even work. But you get a wider audience by leveraging the audience of the media or other bigger authors or other journals' audiences, and using them as a channel to their audience. Okay, some of these are the same, so I'm going to skip over a few of those. A quick and easy and cheap way to grow my email list. Okay, so every email list, in order to grow your email list, you're going to need something called a lead magnet. This is a free download of some kind of content that you create that people get for free, and when they download it, their email gets collected, and that's how you sign up for newsletters these days. Is you get a freebie for giving your email address to somebody, and it's not just a way of kind of offering payment for giving me your email address. It actually is an effective way to kind of make your newsletter sound tantalizing and interesting, because when you are in the media or when you are just talking on your own social media channel and you're trying to get people to sign up for your newsletter, instead of saying sign up for my newsletter, you can just talk about the amazing content on this download that you have. And that's gonna, do you want this? And that's gonna direct people over to you. Now, a lot of people have heard that before, so I don't want to give just really simple advice. I think the question is still, okay, but how do I grow an audience to even know that they're going to want that thing? If you have a lead magnet, that's really great. Then you're going to go into Canva and you're going to create a little image that almost is going to be like an ad. Okay, that's kind of bragging about this new download that you have. And then you're going to post that on whatever places you hang out. Online. And some of them I would put a little bit of ad spend behind. I would boost a post just a little bit, nothing super expensive. So you're actually kind of advertising your lead magnet at that point. And yes, you are now advertising, spending money on something that is free, but you gotta get that initial boost just to kind of get off of the ground in order to get that stuff, kind of those emails coming in. And that's gonna be kind of your best first step to growing your email list. And after that, you can look into things like collaborations with other people and kind of doing newsletter swaps. You write for them, they're going to write for you, etc. But nobody wants to partner with you if you have a subscriber list of 0, which is why that, initial a little bit of advertising just to get a few people on your list is going to help, so that you have something to bring to further marketing opportunities. How to sell as many books as possible without wasting my time, as I am donating all proceeds of my book to a nonprofit charity. Okay, so the time versus money is, the big dilemma for everybody. And most of what I teach is long-term strategy. That doesn't mean it's time-consuming. It just means the proceeds don't start rolling in right away. So depending on whether kind of immediacy is more important, again, you can go back to advertising, like I said at the beginning, one of the first questions to this video. But if you're donating the proceeds to charity, you don't have, you want to keep as much of that profit as possible, I'm assuming. So ads save your time, but you have less to give to this charity at that point. However, doing publicity and getting your name out there, or fostering community on a newsletter or social media, that you don't have to do it every day by any means, but there's effort there. So it really depends on the type of author you are. If this is the only book you've ever written and you don't want to necessarily, you're not trying to start an author career, you just wrote a book as a gift to this organization, so you don't have any reason to have an author Instagram account, then I think you should look at advertising. But if this is just one of many books that you also have other books, you are, an author actively promoting other books, well, then you can still do these same strategies that I've been talking about through this video, because you're going to need to do those anyway for your entire career, and just make sure you keep mentioning this other book that is for charity, alongside your other books as you do this. A clear method to the best results. Yeah, we all want that. There is no clear method, unfortunately, and that's why I have a job. If it were clear, if this were easy, you wouldn't need to be seeking advice on marketing, would you? A clear method to the best results is the clearest method to the best results, I should say, let's go back to the intuition and the gut, right? There are book marketers, there are all marketers of all industries that will teach you how to track the results from every single strategy you do. There's a very semi-complicated way of doing this, of making trackable links, a series of trackable links. And in every marketing strategy or marketing avenue, you make sure to have a different link to your books, so that when people buy your books, you can see what link they came from. And because you can see what link they came from, I only sent that link when I was on this and such podcast on Tuesday. So therefore that purchase came directly from that podcast. But if you do that for literally every type of marketing that you do, that's a lot of links. It's a lot of chances for you to get it wrong and accidentally send the wrong link to the wrong place and misread it. And you're going to have a big spreadsheet somewhere on your computer that keeps track of all the data. None of this becomes simple at that point, right? That becomes very complicated, which is why I don't like to do it. But that is the typical way that tracking results is done. The problem with that is, just because it's still flawed data, because just because we know where a purchaser came from doesn't mean we know the entire kind of journey they went on before they finally decided to buy the book. So there's something in marketing called the rule of 7, which is this idea that you have to have 7 interactions with a person before they will make a purchase. So chances are that even if person X bought your book and you can track the link and see that, oh, that is from the post that I made last Tuesday that was talking about a sale that I was going to have, like a discount on my books or something. Okay, but what you don't know is how long that person had waited and was considering buying your book and how many other interactions kind of intrigued them about your book leading up to the time they finally decided to purchase. Like there's a chance that discount sale you ran wouldn't have had any effect on them if you hadn't been nurturing them for a long time. So it's really flawed to say that, oh, I just need to do more discounts, clearly. Like, not necessarily, because it's every customer's on a journey towards you. So then you're doing all this effort and it's not really good data. So then we go back to your gut. I mean, I teach minimalist marketing, so I don't think you have to have 15 irons in the fire at any time. It's best practice to be doing more than one strategy at a time. But let's say you only do 2 or 3 things to talk about your books all month, and then you look at kind of the monthly data of your sales, and maybe one of them is easily trackable. Let's say it is ads, and you have data on ads. You have the clicks from that. So you can mentally kind of subtract that from your total. And then the number you have left is divided between 2 other avenues that you did. And you probably know, like, okay, well, X, newspaper has this giant audience. The other thing I did was just social media, and my social media has never been that great at converting, let's say. So then you can kind of guess that it came from the newspaper feature. And that's enough for most authors. You don't usually need to know much deeper than that. How do I stop being indecisive and take constructive action? Well, I don't know how to make you stop being indecisive, unfortunately. It seems that you already know that you need to, though. Marketing is all about consistency. So the indecisiveness or the trying something and stopping and trying something else, or the being too overwhelmed by all the choices to even try anything at all, like all of that is literally the worst thing you can do in marketing. You really just have to try something and then stick with it and give it a chance. Stick with it for a while before you say no and walk away. So, how do you take constructive action? You find an idea that you're intrigued by, that looks interesting to you. Again, that kind of intuition and gut check, like, oh, I think I would like to try that. And then you try it. And you try it for several months. You don't just try it for 2 days and then walk away. To figure out which programs or activities will jumpstart my efforts to create/contribute to anthologies in my genre. Okay, so with anthologies, I don't know of a program that necessarily does any of this, but if that's just where you're trying to put your efforts, if your efforts are to create an anthology, then when you're looking for contributors, right? So at that point, you're going to need to look at collaborative spaces, places that will let you come on as a guest. Again, either interviews and publicity, but it also could just be other marketing people who run accounts about authors, Facebook groups that allow you to post in them, just asking for contributions. And then, again, advertising. You could do a boosted post doing like a call for contributors. Most of the major writing magazines, Writer's Digest, Publishers Weekly, have some kind of call for opportunities section. This is definitely paid, of course. You could also start your own Facebook group, because Facebook groups tend to be, like, Facebook tends to push them out to new audiences. They want to grow the group's channel. So if you actually made a group called whatever your anthology's topic is, contribute to anthology about X. People will probably find you as they are searching for anthologies to contribute to. If you have a website, make sure you're putting the call up there. Try to leverage SEO a little bit to have keywords in your call for guests that are something other authors would be Googling. All those things. If you are looking to contribute to an anthology, then there is a program that will do that. It's called Google. Just Google the types of anthologies that you would want to be part of and see what's out there. Read a bunch of them first. Don't submit to just anything. Make sure it's something that matches not only your topic, but is a quality, is just a quality publication. Because it doesn't really help your career grow if you just keep publishing in only small places that 2 people have ever heard of. So, maximizing marketing effectiveness while minimizing the noise. We talked about this before, but literally unsubscribe from the noise. Pick a couple of marketing paths and just fully devote yourself to them. Effectiveness really comes down to just consistency. So, you can make almost any strategy work for you as long as you actually fully devote yourself to it. How to adapt traditional marketing techniques and leverage them on a small budget. Okay. Well, the good news is traditional marketing techniques do not have to be super expensive. Certainly a lot of them were. Advertising used to, only be in magazines and newspapers, which is much more expensive than advertising on Amazon or on social media. But publicity has always been free. Getting interviewed by the media has always been free, and is actually a very traditional way of getting exposure. Publicity isn't quite the same thing as marketing, but they work in tandem, and so they serve very close to the same purpose, especially these days. So if you're on a small budget, definitely look into that. Other traditional marketing would be being a vendor, getting a booth somewhere. That does get kind of expensive the bigger the event and the venue is. But you could start small. The problem is there is such a thing as too small. You can sit around for 2 days and have 4 sales if it's not a big audience, or if the audience to that show isn't the right ones for your books. So you would have to have a lot of confidence that small to mid-sized show has people who would be eager for your book. Let's see. In order to what I need to do first. The first thing you need to do is networking. Networking is building friendships within the business. So yes, find other authors, but who else is in the book industry, right? Journalists and book reviewers, agents, editors, bookstore owners, all of the people who touch books at some level. You need to find people who make their living doing that and befriend them. And that doesn't mean, make a literary agent your best friend, because you probably don't have access to a literary agent. But you do probably have a bookstore near you and can introduce yourself to the bookstore owner and build a friendship there. You do probably have journalists whose beat is the arts in either your city, or if you're from too small of a town, maybe a neighboring city, but like a local media person who focuses on the arts. You can befriend them. We need friends in this business, and it's not just for other opportunities, because yes, the more friends you have in the business, the more kind of opportunities you will see come your way. But it's also just for your mental health, and it's for your educational purposes. You will get advice from these people. You will see how they do things. And connections are just how the world runs. And I'm sorry to have to tell you that. I think you probably knew that already. So you can't climb a ladder without some kind of connection. I'm not pushing for you to be kind of like sleazy and like build a friendship based just on what you can get out of it and kind of weird like that. No. Build sincere friendships. But do realize that a friendship and community does have real benefits. And that's the very first thing you should do. You should do that. You can do that before you even start writing your book. So that is kind of the number one first step. The number two, I think, would be figure out how you're going to nurture people and kind of experiment with different options. If you like social media, figure out which channel you want to be on. If you don't like social media, then you need to brainstorm how you are going to build what's called the know, like, trust factor for readers and take them on that journey of getting to trust you enough to become a loyal fan of you. You can also do that with a newsletter if you don't like social media. I know of authors who didn't want to be on social media, so they started a podcast. It's not quite the community builder that, that social media is, but at least this author was showing up regularly in her audience's ears, and they could hear her voice, and they could get to know her, even if they couldn't, talk back to her. And so that helps do that. So figuring out how you're going to nurture people is the second step, because the nurturing of your fans is actually more important even than finding new ones, believe it or not. Key basics for effective marketing. Okay, key basics. We've talked about the rule of 7, meaning it's 7 interactions. It's actually more. Before people will buy your book. So that means you just have to nurture people. You just have to be in community with your fans somehow. We've talked about the know, like, and trust. People only buy from those they know, like, and trust. And so making sure that you build trust as a personal brand, because that's what authors are. You're a personal brand, is very, very key. And then another really important piece is to understand cold versus warm leads, which is the idea that, the colder a lead is, the less likely they are to buy from you. And a cold lead is somebody who's never heard of you before. A warm lead has. Again, that goes back to that rule of 7. Like, over those 7 interactions, you are warming up that person. And so realizing that because cold pitching, so when you send a request for an opportunity for yourself to somebody who's never heard of you, now we're not talking about readers, I'm talking about journalists and sending your book out to be reviewed at a journal somewhere or a newspaper, that almost never works because you need the person on the receiving end of a request from you to have some familiarity with you. Understanding that difference, that cold versus warm lead, whether you're talking to readers, whether you're talking other industry professionals whose attention you want to get, is really important because it means before you send the pitch, before you make the ask, you have to, what did we talk about before? Network. It would be much more effective to build relationships with people in the industry versus just sending out a bunch of cold pitches over and over and over again. That's not to say there's not a place for pitching. Of course there is. But the pitching is more effective the more work you have put into building a relationship first. So I think we will end there. I hope that answered a lot of questions for all of you. You can learn more about what I do at goodenoughbookmarketing.com. I'm the minimalist marketer, so I am trying to save you time by using just foundational principles to effectively sell your books. So if you would like to get a free handout from me, I have an amazing handout I created, my favorite one I've ever made, called 7 Book Marketing Activities You Can Stop Doing Today. So if you want to know where you can just free up your time or maybe switch to something more effective, head on over to goodenoughbookmarketing.com and get my free handout.